So Claire, but let me introduce you first to the rest of the people. First of all, well, I would like to thank everybody for being here, for joining us on this morning to listen to Claire. It's been a long time since we last shared the pleasure of listening to your presentation, but here we are again. It was probably one of the last events we had at AACI before the pandemic.
Yes,
when you came.
2022, I think it might have been, or 20.
Right.
Yeah,
2020,
right.
I think it was right at the beginning. So Claire is going to deliver her talk courtesy also of the Bell Schools and of Anna Giner from the English Corner, who is also supporting and sponsoring this event. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Gabriela Lopez Lopez. I am the head of AACI Certificates, the area of AACI in charge of the administration, design, and management of local exams, okay? But you will get more information about that later. Now, let me introduce Claire. Claire then is going to be talking about idioms from the known to the new. And as I said before, I'm going to ask you all to please turn off your cameras and microphones, and I will do as I will do now myself. So Claire, it's over to you. You can get started then. Okay.
Thanks very much. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Gabby. And also thank you to my friend Anna for making this happen. And you were saying good morning. Here in Cambridge, it's good afternoon. And it's a beautiful sunny day for once. We are around 17 degrees this afternoon, which is phenomenally warm compared to recent days. So it's my pleasure to be with you today from Cambridge. And we're going to be looking at idioms, thinking about some that we know already that may be very familiar to us or to our students, and branching out to look at some that might be less familiar to you and that you might want to pass on to your own learners. Okay, let me just go on to the next. Oh, the next slide. Wait a minute, hold on. Yeah, okay. So let's have a look at the outline of the session. I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes and then we will open the floor to question time at the end. We're going to think a little bit about what we already know, so working from the known. Thinking a little bit about what idioms are, what are their characteristics, why have they got this reputation as rather tricky in terms of learning and teaching. We will think a little bit about the classroom situation, how we might move a lesson with learners from looking at their prior lexical knowledge to introducing them to some idioms, expressions with idiomatic meaning, and as well as giving you some newer idioms to take away for yourself as learners. Another aim then of this session will be to encourage you to be independent when making the link between what you learn in this session and what or how you might want to teach your own students. Okay, so let's get on to thinking about the definition. What exactly is an idiom? I'm going to have a look at the chat and I'm going to encourage you to pop one word in there per gap. This is just a definition of idiom from the Cambridge Online Dictionary. So if I open the chat, I can see what you're popping into the chat there. Okay, so let's try and share our definition of idiom. You've got 4 gaps, 1 word per gap. Let's see. Have a go. And I'll give you an answer. Clue. 2 of the words are the same. So let's have a look. I can see some things coming up in the chat here. A group of words we've got, a set of words, yeah. We got a fixed order, combination. Yeah, we've got set and group going on. Yeah, meaning, that's fine, yes. Okay, yes, a lot of things coming into the chat that look absolutely fine. Okay, all right, so let me, Yeah, fixed combination, that's it, or set. Yeah, okay. So two of the words were the same, as you can probably work out. All right, yeah, great. So we've got a lot of answers going on there. Yeah, let's have a look then at the definition as it appears in the Cambridge Dictionary online. Yeah, so a group of words, yes, absolutely. If you said set of words, that's fine as well. Fixed order, particular order, absolutely, that's one of the key characteristics. And these words together have a particular meaning that's different from the meaning of each individual words. Of course, absolutely fine with that. So what we have to say then, idioms are a type of formulaic language, which is language that consists of fixed expressions and which you learn and understand as units or chunks. They are a deceptively tricky area of language to teach and learn. And let's think a little bit about why idioms pose so many difficulties in terms of teachability and learnability. Well, let's see. I don't know if you love idioms or you maybe shy away from them as teachers, and it depends on your learners and their level, of course, and their needs. I think some of the characteristics of idioms are that although we think of them as primarily a vocabulary feature, they do indeed have their own grammatical forms. We've got idioms made of verb plus object. We've got idioms that are prepositional phrases like under the weather or behind the times. We've got idioms that are just two words joined together by and. So we've got binomials, we've got trinomials, we've got compounds, and these are also types of idiom. So they do have their own grammar, although they are primarily regarded as lexical items, of course. There are thousands of them, so this is the other obstacle perhaps to learning. I think the Cambridge Idioms Dictionary contains 7,000 idioms, and clearly this is way more than a learner is ever going to be able to amass in their lifetime. And some of them are not useful idioms anyway, and we'll think a bit about this later on. Of course, yes, what makes them difficult is that the meaning is not transparent. Clearly, as we said in the definition, you can't just get to the nugget of meaning just by understanding the individual words on their own. You have to look at this as a fixed phrase or a chunk of language. Okay, the fixedness, that's right, you can't just interchange parts of the idiom as you wish. And translatability, there you are, they're not always automatically translatable into the mother tongue. And of course, I think we have to say that idioms exist in a shared cultural context, and they can be ellipted or cut or shortened. You know, we are confident in our own mother tongue that readers or listeners will recognize the idiom that I use. So well-known idioms, well-known phrases don't need to be given in full. You might hear someone being warned, don't count your chickens. So, in other words, don't assume that a future plan will be successful. And we kind of lipped it, don't count your chickens before they are hatched. But if I just cut off the second half of that, I'm pretty confident that someone in my shared cultural context will know what I'm talking about if I just say, don't count your chickens. And you might hear that children took advantage of their parents' absence with the idiom, when the cat's away, the mice will play. But again, you can just ellipt it to when the cat's away. And you can encourage someone by saying chin up rather than the whole idiom, you know, keep your chin up. So you can ellipt idioms and you can be fairly confident that I know what I mean and you know what I mean, because these idioms exist in our shared idiolect or our shared cultural context. Okay, the last point I think is really vital if we are going to tell students what we know about idioms. They do have a shelf life. they can fall in and out of fashion, just like any single lexical item. And to illustrate what I mean by this, I've put this as beware. Okay. Now, as we said before, the Cambridge Idioms Dictionary contains 7,000 idioms, and clearly that is far too many for any learner to acquire during an average language course. So to achieve realistic learning targets, we need to examine a corpus database of spoken and written texts stored on a computer. We need to look at corpus analysis from corpus linguistics to establish which idioms are used in everyday English today and how they are used. So this is my beware, be careful. I'm sure you can see what this picture illustrates. Yeah, the expression that we say, well, we used to say when it's raining heavily. Okay, so here we go. This is from the Cambridge Online Dictionary, and I've just put a big blue arrow here warning users that can consult the dictionary to check on this idiom. This is regarded as old-fashioned. All right, so I think we're going to have to be a little bit careful with this. It's probably the world's most beloved idiom, to be quite honest. It's the one that you possibly learn first when you are learning about idioms in the English language classroom. But when we delve a little bit deeper into corpus analysis, we think about frequency of occurrence, frequency of use. And here is a little bit of information, some statistics published on the Cambridge World of Better Learning blog back in 2018. And these statistics show us how many times each idiom, there are 4 idioms here, how many times each idiom occurs in the Cambridge International Corpus. Now, the Cambridge Corpus contains more than 1 billion words of text. And the corpus tells us that the idiom raining cats and dogs occurs a very small number of times, 65 times in 1 billion word corpus. So clearly, there are other way more frequently used or frequently occurring idioms that we could and should be teaching our students. So 3 examples here. Getting rid of something, they are fairly high frequency compared to cats and dogs. Throwing away, binning something, standing your ground. This is regarded as a C2 level idiom. Refusing to be pushed around. You stand firm in your beliefs. When you believe something, you stand firm in an argument. Towing the line, doing what you're expected to do without causing trouble. It comes from the military, from the army. But I think this is a really useful little insight into how corpus analysis can work for us as teachers. And it's a very nice blog to be following, the cambridge.org.elt blog. Lots of wonderful little insights like this, or gems about language and language evolution. Okay, so if we've now kind of dispelled that myth, we've rather poo-pooed the idiom raining cats and dogs. Clearly, if we do want to introduce students to that concept of very heavy rain, it's raining heavily, we know that raining cats and dogs has very infrequent usage nowadays. There are obviously other verbs and expressions that we should or could introduce our students to, although maybe not the last one here, which is regarded as taboo language. I bet some of your students will know it already though. But yeah, depending on the age and sensibilities of your learners, you might not want to introduce number 7. But yeah, here we are. I mean, these are very frequently used, of course, still in the UK. You're probably very happy to teach your students pouring, bucketing, lashing down, like from a whip, the lashes of the whip, tipping, right, like tipping something. So transitive verb there, the only one that has a transitive. object in it. Adjective, torrential, there you are, and a rather nice poetic one, more romantic sounding one, the heavens have opened. Yes, and I went out in the morning and the heavens opened and I didn't have a raincoat. Okay, so this is just thinking a little bit about how idioms do have a shelf life. They do fall in and out of favor, fall in and out of fashion. And what I say to students about this, or teachers, when they ask me, how do I know? My go-to dictionary is always the Cambridge Online Dictionary, and I do find that it will tell you if something is old-fashioned or dated. And we'll mention something more about how can I keep up to date later on. All right, so let's move on a little bit to look at the idea of scaffolding. Okay, I'm going to just show you a lesson that I adapted some time ago from the best-selling book Headway Intermediate. And this was at B1 in the B1 book. And it's a lesson that introduces students to a set of idioms connected to parts of the body. And the way I did it was a little bit in order to lift it off the page, make it a little bit more interactive and collaborative for my students. All right, so this is stage one. Stage one of the lesson, I get students together in pairs or small groups. And this first stage of the lesson, we are allowing learners to draw on prior lexical knowledge. So I get students, I give them a blank body picture, as you can see here. It's just off the internet, or you can hand draw it if you're a good artist. Doesn't have to be very sophisticated. But I set this in I set a time limit to encourage a bit of collaboration with students, and I give them the picture, and the job is with your partner or maybe in your small group of 3, label as many parts of the body as you can on your picture. Now, as you can probably tell, this is what we call an open-ended task, in that some pairs or some groups will doubtless be able to label more parts of the body. They will have more advanced vocabulary, perhaps, than some other pairs. When the time is up, I do a little bit of checking around the room, and I ask people, what is your best word? What word do you think no other pair or group in the room has got? Give me your best word. And I pop it on the board, pop some answers on the board there, so that students have a visual record, a written record. We check some pronunciation of difficult items, maybe thigh, forehead, thumb, ankle, wrist. But I generally say to students, look, give me your best word. How many nouns did you label? What's your absolute best word that you think no other group has got? And we have some, well, I've had some rather strange answers, but I won't repeat them here. Okay, all right. So that was stage one, drawing on previous knowledge or prior knowledge, okay, just parts of the body. Then we move on, all right, to stage 2. I introduce some verbs now that will go eventually with these nouns. We introduce some verbs, but we're still working at the literal level. So we elicit from students that you kick with your foot, you hug with your arms, you bite with your teeth, etc., etc. And if you wanted to sneak in a bit of extra teaching at this point and stretch students, you could do a quick focus on what is the past simple of these verbs. Which ones are regular, which ones are irregular. Okay, so we introduce the verbs, having done the nouns from the body firstly. Stage 3, again, we're going a little bit onwards and we're thinking about collocation. We move on to the idea of verb plus noun, collocating, going together naturally to reinforce meaning and focus on this natural phenomenon of language. So collocations, again, a kind of chunk, formulaic language. And on their worksheet, the students would be matching then the verb on the left to a noun on the right. So hitting a nail with a hammer, whistling a tune, licking an ice cream. And you can make it quite physical as well, or get students to demo the verbs, demo the actions. And I've always had a little bit of hilarity when I've done this with students. We think about other combinations. You know, would you like to kiss a carrot? Some people, you know, maybe have that with their answer. Holding your grandma. Yeah, some that are just totally not suitable. But anyway, so you can make it a little bit physical, perhaps, by thinking about the meaning of these action verbs. So we've gone then, to recap, we've done nouns from the parts of the body. We have introduced some verbs. We've thought about the meaning of the actions of the verbs. We've now introduced some verb and noun combinations, the collocational aspect of language. Stage 4, I'm sure you're imagining what's going on here. So we've scaffolded, we've built up now. We're going to introduce to our students the idea of idiomatic language, but still our focus is on parts of the body. And I do present this then in a context, getting students to work out the meanings of the idioms from the context is much easier, of course, than just giving them a list of idioms, as you know. We introduce them, and the contextualization makes it easier for students to arrive at meaning. And again, they're still working in pairs or small groups to discuss. Sometimes I say, well, a scribe, one person should be the scribe, and just write down on a piece of paper what you feel the meaning is. So on a piece of paper, 1 to 10, discuss in your group or your pair. One person write down what you think the meaning or the definition of the idiom might be, and then you're going to check a little bit later on. You check your guesses a little bit later on. Okay, so let's see. I'll open the chat if you like, and you might want to tell me which of these idioms you're enjoying the most, which ones you have seen before, which ones you remember having taught to your students, or you think that your students would like. Oh, we've got a few other ones. Very nice. We've got break a leg. Yes, I think I could possibly update my worksheet to include things like break a leg, to wish someone good luck in the theatre. I'm all ears, that's right. Yeah, we've got people going for kick the habit, yes. Another one that someone's introduced, to be wet behind the ears. So a little bit green, a little bit inexperienced. Lovely. But yes, I think this is a really great extension activity, perhaps, after having done this with students and getting them to check the meaning. Why not open it up then and get students to do a little bit of research? How many other idioms using parts of the body can you find, or do you know? Absolutely. Let's see. Okay, so they work out the meanings of the idioms from the contextualized sentences. And then what I usually do to make it a little bit more interactive or a little bit more kinesthetic, away from the book or heads down, I put the definitions of the idioms on cards around the room, on the walls. So a little bit of preparation, but then you just pull them off and use them again in a different lesson. So it's worth doing. It's a little bit of bringing the course book to life almost. And the groups will then journey around the room. They've got their list of potential definitions or meanings, and then they can check with the cards on the walls how close were they with their interpretation of those idioms? So biting the bullet, absolutely. Forcing yourself to do something tricky, be brave, kissing something goodbye, accept that you've lost it or that you can't have it back again. Kiss that money goodbye. Okay. So I do try to make things a little bit more interesting or less book-based for some lessons, especially with vocabulary. Okay. And then stage 5, we've built up towards this from nouns to verbs to collocation to idioms in context to checking the definitions of the idioms. But we haven't overwhelmed students. We've limited it to 8 or 9 idioms here, and 10 idioms, yeah. Not overwhelming them with too many, for example. Okay, so stage 5, rounding off with a bit of speaking, personalization, things like this that they can answer, and they don't need to answer all 5 of them. They can answer the 3 that they want to talk about most, for example. Okay, so have you given up? Have you kicked another habit? Yeah. When did you bite the bullet last? And so on. So personalizing after some lexical input. And then, as you said, I think another way perhaps of coming back to this later on in a different lesson, you might want to think about giving students a little bit of a head word, maybe like foot or shoulder or chest or something like this. Hand is a very good one that generates a lot of idiomatic expressions. So perhaps a part of the body to each group, and they do a little bit of research and present 1 or 2 idioms to the whole class that are based around a part of the body. Absolutely. Okay, so there could be a stage 6, if you like, which might involve revision or extension, a bit of research and a bit of presentation to their peers, other idioms formed with parts of the body. Okay, all right, so that's just how I've done it. This was a B1 lesson from an old favorite course book, Headway, but I'm sure you have lots of other ways of perhaps introducing idioms, parts of the body to your own students. Okay, now, if we move away from the kind of scaffolded lesson idea with students, let's think a little bit about the new, working from the known, the body idioms, to the new. Okay, many idioms, of course, are so old and familiar that we don't think twice about using them. And we've got, I'm sure lots of people will know the wonderful series of in-use books by McCarthy and O'Dell, 2 Cambridge-based writers. And this is the English Idioms in Use Advanced one. And I think it has about 1,000 idioms in it. I did double check before the webinar. There's no appearance at all of raining cats and dogs. So because it's based on recent corpus investigation, we already know then that that has fallen out of fashion. It's just not widely used nowadays. So many idioms are, we can trace them back. We can trace the etymology of some idioms back hundreds of years, of course, and a lot of them come from, I'll just quote Mike McCarthy on this, many English idioms have very deep roots in history and culture. They have origins in traditional skills or crafts, for example, sailing. They have origins in things like ancient myths and mythology. They have their origins in literature or war. So this book is a really great one. But what about newer idioms? Do we ever coin new idioms? Well, of course, the answer is yes, of course we do. And new idioms evolve from television, advertising, politics, popular culture, business, new sport, new fashion. They often quickly become expressions that are understood and used by many, many people in their everyday lives. So here we have some newer idioms. These are all featured in the McCarthy and Odell book. Okay, so we're doing this one as a banked gap fill. You have 4 gaps, but you have 6 possible items to go in the gaps. Let's open up the chat. Clearly, then there are 2 items that you don't need. I'm going to open the chat and let's see just how you complete these idioms. Okay, let's see what you're popping in. Okay, good. All right, I'm going to monitor the chat and see how we're getting on with our idiom completion. Yes, nice, good, looking good there. Yeah, yeah, good. Okay, good. Yeah, nice. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so this is a very easy way then of doing a little test. And it so four gaps, for example, but you include in your bank gap fills 2 extra items, for example, that look plausible, they look feasible, they're the same type of word, all nouns, but they just don't fit in. Absolutely. And this is an easy one to do if you want to raise the level of challenge of a gap fill exercise. Okay, so let's have a look here. Good. Yes, lovely. So people are identifying where that last one came from. You're absolutely right. Okay, so the importance of popular culture. Okay, so we've got then Taylor Swift. Is she the first lady? The answer was lady, the first lady of pop. First lady of whatever is clearly the analogy with the first lady, the wife of the American president, POTUS and FLOTUS, as they are known in acronyms. And of course, it means the best in her or his profession. Well, her here, sorry, yeah. The best in her profession, the expert, absolutely. Of course, we have things like the first woman in space or the first woman to climb Everest, but that's literal, not idiomatic. Okay, so the first lady of pop, absolutely. The best in her field or profession. Okay, number 2. Yeah, most people were absolutely spot on with this. To mess up or to do something big time. Or you could also say big style. Both of these would be fine. Big time or big style. It's an adverb meaning to a great degree or totally. I totally messed up my job interview. Okay, that's fine. Number 3, well, we do have the idiom spit it out, mean, don't bottle it up. Tell me what you really think, spit it out. This one, in fact, was hug it out. Okay, so the verb, let's hug it out, meaning let's end our quarrel. And it was popularized on an American television series called Entourage. I've never seen it. Although apparently Chandler once said it to Phoebe in an episode of Friends. Anyway, it's been repeated in magazines and on t-shirts and has entered common usage. Let's hug it out. So let's make up almost. Let's be friends again. Hug it out. Okay. And yes, you're absolutely right with the last one. I noticed a lot of people had made the connection to where it came from. If you describe a woman, I think it's purely a woman, to be honest, in usage. If you describe a woman as a bunny boiler, you are alluding to the 1987 film Fatal Attraction, which starred Michael Douglas and Glenn Close. And nowadays, even people who have never seen the film or never heard of the film still recognize the term with its modern meaning. A bunny boiler is a woman who seeks dramatic revenge after being jilted or ditched by a lover. And this is what the Glenn Close character did in the film to take revenge on Michael Douglas after he'd ditched her. She went into his apartment somehow and put his daughter's rabbit in a pot of hot water on the stove. So don't try that at home. Okay, all right, let's move on then. I got a few extras for you here, which are regarded as more contemporary coinages. Okay, so this one, pop your answers in the chats. No help with this one. But I'll open up the chat and let's have a look at what people are guessing. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, okay, nice. Yeah, for number one, definitely. Okay, yes, we've got bus going on as an answer for one. Yes. Okay, with the hyphenation, the adjective here, world. Okay, good. Yeah, nice for number three, everybody. Yeah, good. Okay. And poor old Justin Bieber. Well, here we go. I might be wrong. He might have a tour or album, but I just chose him at random. Okay. Yes, that's lovely. Yes, good. Yeah, so people have put a little question mark sometimes, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Yes. Okay, fine. All right, so the next four examples then, which are regarded as more contemporary, more up-to-date idiomatic examples. Throwing or pushing somebody under the bus. Let me see if I can get this on here for you to double check. That's right. Throwing or pushing someone under the bus, meaning to sacrifice someone in order to minimize harm or damage to yourself. So doing something harmful to someone else in order to gain an advantage for yourself. It's often used in politics amongst politicians to throw shade onto people from other parties. First recorded usage of throwing someone under the bus or pushing someone under the bus, 1982 article in the Times newspaper describing how Margaret Thatcher at the time had been pushed under the bus during a political crisis. First world problem, absolutely right. A problem that pales into insignificance when compared to the serious problems that people have in certain parts of the world. It's still annoying, but let's put it in perspective. Who cares about a cracked phone screen, really? Okay. Became popular as a Twitter hashtag. Now it's called X, but I still like to call it Twitter, from around 2005 onwards, the idea of the first world problem. So around from about 2005. Going the extra mile, absolutely. Making more effort than is expected of you. Good. And fallen or dropped off the radar. Yes, absolutely. Falling into obscurity, disappearing from public view. If someone or something is off your radar, you're not aware of it, or you haven't thought about it for a while. So I might be doing Justin a disservice here. I don't know if he's on the radar or off the radar nowadays, but okay. All right. Now, having had a look at some newer idioms here, let's think a little bit about how we feel about these things, our considerations. I think, yeah, in terms of teaching, if you are ever unsure about an idiom's relevance or modernity, as I said, what I tend to always do or recommend to students is go to an online dictionary because, as we know, compared to print dictionaries, which are updated every 4 years, for example, online dictionaries are updated every quarter. The Oxford Dictionary Online is updated every 3 months. The Cambridge Online Dictionary is updated every month. So it's the job of all the lexicographers to very much keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on with language out there. And if an item or a phrase has widespread usage throughout the UK and it's recorded in a corpus, it will be going into an online dictionary on a monthly basis. So I do say to students, higher level students, check the Cambridge Online Dictionary, and it will tell you, or it should tell you, whether things are literary slang or old-fashioned. Of course, if you don't want to do that, or you don't kind of believe that these things do reflect actual usage, check with an expert speaker, someone whose opinion that you trust, someone whose language you trust, and maybe, decide to teach in terms of classroom work, maybe an overt focus, like an idioms workshop would be of use to your students. Idioms talking about relationships or money or success, for example, as they are pretty much categorized in books like this one. It's very much topic based. Okay. So I think there's two sides to the coin. Whether you do an idioms workshop in terms of overt focus, use of English, exam training, idioms are still tested in the Cambridge Upper Main Suite exams of First, Advanced and Proficiency. So students do need to have a sort of repertoire or a working knowledge of idiomatic expressions because they will be tested on those. I think as they pop up in reading or listening that you're working on, it might be kind of language that emerges rather than the overt focus of a lesson. But I think with advanced learners or adult learners, let's say, there is a lot of mileage in focusing on translatability. Are the lexical components of an idiom exactly the same in translation? Does the meaning remain the same between English and Spanish, for example? Is something lost in translation? And I think if we want to encourage learners to replicate idiomatic use in writing, we do need to train them not to overuse them in informal writing. But I think there's a lot of mileage in thinking about mother tongue versus second or third language in terms of idiomatic expressions. And I want to just, I think I Googled, are there any idioms from other languages that we use in English? And I came up with this, mano a mano, and it's in the Cambridge Dictionary. Noun form, so there are a mano between the two presidential candidates, okay? And the collocation is to go, going mano a mano with someone outside the supermarket or whatever. And I think, if I'm right, you might be laughing at me now and going, Claire, that is not an idiom in Spanish, but I might open the chat. Is this an idiom in Spanish? Let me see. All right. Okay. I'm not sure. It is. Okay. Thank you. Someone said yes, it's actually an idiom in Spanish. Okay, great. But this is a kind of lovely example of a borrowing, right? A borrowed Spanish idiom that now we have adopted and we now use in English because maybe this filled a gap in the English lexicon and we just looked outside to a different language and we found this lovely one. Okay, so it's in Cambridge Dictionary. Okay, and I think we will leave our final word possibly to the wonderful Michael McCarthy, whose posts on the Cambridge World of Better Learning blog or website are always insightful and inspirational, I think. And yeah, should we be learning and teaching these at all? There are so many other basic things to learn for our students. Well, Mike McCarthy says, sorry, it's a little bit of a mouthful, but I mean, really, he says, yes, in terms of learnability, they're not easy because the meaning's not transparent. But if we think about back in 2000, when Michael Lewis brought out all his lexical approach, the lexical approach of Michael Lewis, and he said that if learners are to move off the intermediate plateau, they need substantial lexical input, which will be predominantly collocational. And the indicators of fluency that are still left to learn to get you off the intermediate plateau are collocations, idioms, and phrasal verbs, all of which are overtly tested in the Cambridge Upper Main Suite exams of First Advanced and Proficiency. But Mike McCarthy's feeling is that, yes, we do need to introduce students to the idea of idiomaticity, because these are an essential feature of real language. Okay, and these are my references. As I said, I've mentioned the Cambridge blog a few times here. There's a lovely article by Mike McCarthy, albeit from 2018, about raining cats and dogs, and how corpus linguistics or corpus analysis really helps us as teachers with what people are actually using out there in terms of idioms. Okay, so I think I can stop sharing, all right? And I'm coming back now to the general group, maybe.
Right.
Hello.
Hello, it's me. Before you start asking questions to Claire, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you an opinion survey, okay? You can ask Claire your questions now, but before you do so, I'm going to share with you the opinion survey. Let me see if I can do that properly. Okay. Let me find it. Okay. And you can start thinking of your questions meanwhile. That's okay. Here, let me see. I'm going to copy this link into the chat box, and you can answer your questions there. Okay. Let me see. There. Oh, well, you can click on the link. I can share it also through screen sharing. Let me see if I can do that.
Oh, thank you. I think I may have closed the chat box down, strangely enough. All right.
Don't worry. There.
I recognize some names. Great.
Mm-hmm. Right. Feel free to ask any questions you may have in the chat box. Go ahead. Right. Well, people say it was a very useful presentation. Indeed it was. Okay. Hats off. Yeah, really, really great. A really great presentation. I personally enjoyed it a lot, and I guess you all did as well.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you.
Right. Great webinar. I'm glad to hear you liked it.
Oh, Pablo.
Great.
Hello, Pablo. My old student. Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm posting the survey again in the chat box in case you couldn't check it there. Is it working okay when you click on the survey? Do you get the questions? Good. Fantastic. Great. So while you answer the question then, as we have these few minutes, oh, there's a question, Claire, from Abril
Oh,
van
yes,
der
I see it.
Sant.
Here we are. That's right. I think, no, I think when I look at course books and so on, I don't see idioms appearing below B1, to be quite honest with you. And I think it's because of this difficulty of meaning. And I think you're working at a non-literal level. when I think about the course books that I've used and the learners that I've taught below B1, I have honestly not done any idiomatic language input with them at all. So I think if you look at published course books, for example, you don't see idioms appearing below B1. I think because the getting to the meaning is just too tricky and they've got enough to deal with already. So pretty much dealing with concrete rather than abstract vocabulary and looking at items in class that are transparent in meaning, not opaque, for example, or metaphorical language. Yeah, they're not tested below. I think that's right. They're not general. They don't generally come on a syllabus below B1, for example. Yes, because of the difficulty of meaning. Yeah. You're welcome. Oh, the most unexpectedly useful. Oh, goodness. Um, Lots of idioms. There's so many to choose from, aren't there? Goodness me. It's very difficult to highlight or pinpoint one. Uh, I don't know. I still love things like, the elephant in the room, which is a lot of business people used it. It became popular, I don't know what, 10 years or something like that. The elephant in the room and the sort of the, the 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 tricky question or the tricky topic that was obvious but nobody wanted to address it. I like things like that, to be honest. Um, yeah, anything animal related, I'm a big fan of. But yeah, when I was preparing this webinar, I started to think, to be quite honest, and I might kind of squeeze a talk out of this at some point. And my son is 21 years old, and I did a little poll in the staff room at school. I said, if you've got children at home, I started to ask people, do you think you've ever heard your child or your teenager use an idiom? And I started to wonder, at what age do you begin to use idioms? And I thought that's quite interesting to research. Um, and is it something that you do as more as an adult when you're aware of the layer of meaning behind idiom because you're making social comment, for example, that you wouldn't be as a young person? So this is a bit of research that I want to carry out for myself. And yeah, I'm going to ask my 21-year-old, which idioms do you use? And are you even aware that they're idioms? So I think that's interesting research. When did idioms start to become part of your um your utterances, or your lexis? Okay. Well, are idioms used more frequently in spoken language? Yes, I would say so, although they're not exclusive to spoken English. Um, we do have people find this quite strange, but there are a lot of idioms in, for example, academic writing, and people don't realize that they're idioms. Things like, in light of, or in the long term, or um, on the one hand and on the other hand. These are idioms, in fact, because they're non-literal. And you do get a whole set of idioms being used in academic writing as sort of discourse markers, but people don't realize that they are idiomatic expressions originally. So, yes, they do exist in more formal context for sure. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know how your students react to idioms, whether they find them intrinsically interesting or just horribly frustrating. But yeah, I think it depends how you feel as a teacher and how you sell it to them in a way. And if you can do a little bit of cross-cultural comparison or L1 and L2 comparison, I think that may be a way of approaching it. look, we've got them in Spanish anyway, so let's see, to what extent they exist in English. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I don't think any more questions are coming in. Oh my goodness, but this is a very difficult one. Shakespeare's idiomatic expressions that have stood the test of time. Oh gosh. Yeah, that's put me on the spot. I'd have to do some research on that. But there are lots of things that still have a place in today, of course, that come from Shakespeare. Okay. I think that might be our final one then.
Right. There have been many questions, and people seem to be very interested, and
Yes,
I'm
sure.
sure you all will take many things to your classrooms on Monday, which is great.
Well,
Right. I just want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank Claire, and I want to thank Anna for making it possible.
Yeah.
I do thank you really deeply, because it was a pleasure when we first heard you all those years ago, and it's a pleasure listening to you today.
Yes, thanks very much.
Okay.
It's lovely.
Right. And I'm certain everybody's taking home beautiful ideas, or great insights, or at least they pamper themselves. They feel, well, I've learned something else, something new today, this morning, and that's great. Now, many people were asking about the recording. What we're going to do next week is to send all of you a certificate of attendance and a few details, and you will get their instructions as to whether the recording will be uploaded somewhere or so. Okay. We will need to see how the recording went, first of all. Okay, to see whether it is publishable or not, right? I just wanted to share very quickly with you, a very short comment on some events that are coming soon and that you might be interested in joining or in being present in soon. As you know, at AACI, we are a big organization developing English
You're muted, Gary.
I have unmuted. Sorry, my connection is not really very good. I wanted to share something with you, but never mind. I just wanted to tell you to keep posted and follow us on social networks for more possible future events. For example, the next upcoming event on the 18th of May is the Cambridge Day. That's a face-to-face event at AACI that all of you are invited to join. Okay. And then there will be face-to-face events in Ramos Mejía, Lomas de Zamora, and at the back in June. And for those of you who are near Mar del Plata or who want to go to Mar del Plata on the 1st of June, we will be there in Mar del Plata at Colegio San Alberto with people from some publishing houses with a beautiful face-to-face event. And also remember that at AACI, you can enjoy the cultural offer at the British Arts Centre. Okay, the British Arts Centre is a great place where plays are staged frequently. You can watch plays from the Buenos Aires Players and from Pest Drama Group. So please make sure you follow us or you check the latest news in our newsletters so as to join these wonderful cultural events. It's not just all about teaching, but also a good opportunity to enjoy the English language as a learner that we need to be sometimes, okay? So thanks a lot, and it's been a pleasure, and well, enjoy the day, right? Bye-bye.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Have a great
Bye.
day,
Bye,
everybody.
Anna. Bye,
Thank you very
Gabby.
much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.